Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is, of course, your favorite daily real estate coaching and training podcast. And today is our favorite day of the week. Probably you feel the same way. It's Friday. We love Fridays because we give ourselves permission to talk about whatever we want to talk about. And yes, we're real estate coaches, so a lot of times we talk about real estate stuff, but sometimes we talk about aliens and we talk about squids. Julie's favorite topic seems to be talking about squids. We talk about real estate trends. We talk about just whatever we have found interesting throughout the week. We write it down, we research it, and then we share it with you on Friday. The point of all of this is to really allow yourself give yourself permission to have different, oftentimes competing thoughts. Like one of the things that Julie and I will often do is we'll hear something and we'll be self-aware of the emotional reaction we have to whatever we just heard. And then we'll say, oh, that was interesting. Look how I just reacted to whatever that trigger was, use modern vernacular. Well, I felt triggered by that. And then why do I feel triggered by that? And then you sort of write it down or make a mental note of it. What was it I just heard this statement and this is how it made me feel. And then go and research both sides of it to try to really ask yourself whether or not that trigger or that emotional reaction was essentially how you would have chosen to react had you actually intellectualized it or understood both sides of it. And I see this happening all the time with folks that will be triggered because you'll talk to them about tariffs, or you'll talk to them about, they'll mention interest rates, or they'll mention housing prices.
Taxes are another one.
Exactly. And people just start going kind of bonkers on these sort of talking points that they've never actually stopped to ask themselves whether what they're saying is true, because they've heard it on MSNBC or they heard it on Fox News or whatever.
Yeah.
So they don't know what they're saying is true or not. They're just saying it. And then as a result of that, they're surrounding themselves with other people that say and think the same thing. Well, I won't even say think. They're just saying the same thing.
It's the initial reaction. They're just making a statement based on the trigger versus going deep and backing it up with something. I listen to a lot of podcasts about language, as you know, because I'm in charge of scripts in the coaching end of things. And I heard something related to this. It was actually a trial attorney talking about how words matter. And she said, a lot of people will start a statement that'll say something like, now more than ever, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, that's a statement of fact. Now more than ever compared to what? And she gave the example where there's a lot of headlines that say, now more than ever, people are miserable because of blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, really, are they more miserable than during World War II? Are they more miserable than during the poverty of, Europe and the potato famine in Ireland? Like, now more than ever compared to what? So she was demonstrating that that trigger, that you just have that reaction and you just, put that statement out there without backing it up, without what you're saying is check yourself on your beliefs.
Well, I'll read articles when you and I are researching stuff, you give me tasks to research to help you write outlines for our podcast. And I'm always using AI nowadays, and sometimes you'll give me a reference point of a CNBC article or just really whatever article it is. And it is so amazing to me how it is rare that the carpet matches the drapes, as far as the subject of the article matches the actual content of the article.
Yes, but that requires you reading on your own and researching on your own.
Let me finish. Yeah. So what happens is that the person writing the article, Diana Olick in the example I just read this morning, her facts and her figures will be fine. But then whoever writes the title for her article is obviously trying to write it as a clickbait title and trying to appeal to a certain mindset. So they know that their audience must be people that think a certain way. So regardless of the content that's irregardless of the content that's in the article, they're going to write the title so that it attracts. Now, here's where it's gotten really pernicious is then they'll take what they perceive the audience wants to hear and summarize the article in 3 points at the top of these articles. And you guys are seeing this everywhere. But what you do, this is again, it's just total crap, honestly. But you'll go through these articles and you'll then go back to the top and you'll read what they're saying the topic was and then the subtopics were. And almost never do those things match. And so they must know how many people are just going to read the title and just read their summary of the most important points. And they are not going to actually get into the meat and the potatoes of it. And over time, the accumulation effect of having all these, opinions filtered into your brain where you haven't actually stopped to think about it, it really does pollute your potential. This has happened. So making this about real estate, making this about lead generation, I see this happening with People that talk about uh, branding, frankly. I mean, that's one of my big bugaboos because the idea of branding and advertising are essentially the same thing. I realize that there's a definitional difference that the branding people will tell you. But at the end of the day, if you stop spending money on your brand, you're not going to be getting any leads. And that's very similar to, say, for example, an ad, no advertising, no money spending on advertising. And then the advertising does, you won't be getting leads. So in my mind, branding and marketing are in the same bucket. But if you ask somebody, and I've done this before, I've done this with you guys on the podcast before, why are you doing the branding? What's the point of the branding? Well, you don't really know. That's the truth. You'll say what you heard, or you'll say what somebody else told you, but you never really stopped to think about it. So for example, I'll just go through it quick. Bob, why are you doing the branding? I see that you're doing a billboard and you're doing bus benches and you're doing direct mail where you're just branding yourself and you're just all this stuff. So you're doing a lot of YouTube videos and doing all these types of things with no real clear call to action. So there's nothing really inviting people to want to do business with you. It's pure branding, right? So why are you doing it? Well, I want to establish myself as an expert in the marketplace so that then people will call me to want to do real estate transactions. I get it. So you're doing the branding to try to reinforce the idea that you're the local expert, so then you can generate leads. And what type of leads? Well, Bob would say ideally listing leads. I want sellers to, okay, so you're after listing leads, just so that I'm clear. Bob, that's your mission with the branding, right? Got it. I'm very clear in my head. Bob wants to establish himself in this particular marketplace as the go-to guy when it comes to selling your house. And that makes total sense to me. Then the next question, and this is the reason that real estate's an interesting bugaboo compared to other industries. I'll say, Bob, then why don't you just call the sellers who already want to sell their homes but don't have their homes listed? Why don't you call the sellers who have previously had their homes for sale but haven't been successful at selling their homes and get their homes listed? Why don't you actually call centers of influence and past clients and find out how many of them are thinking about selling their homes? Why don't you call the notice defaults? Why don't you call the probate listings? Why don't you call the different sources of largely free seller leads and just call those people directly, proactively lead generate to the actual people that you're hoping to attract from all your clever marketing and branding campaigns, all your funneling and your clickbaiting and all your other, copywriting and all this bump, bump, bump. Why don't you just skip all that crap? And why don't you just go directly to the seller who already said, hey, Bob, could you please help me sell my house? Or how many of you guys have driven past on your way to a branding summit, or marketing and advertising branding summit? You're a real estate guru who has come into town and you're all standing in line to go see this person in a, hotel lobby or whatever, wherever. And how many FISBOs do you drive by on the way there? Right.
There's probably one in your neighborhood right now.
And yeah, exactly. You probably, it's the one that when you drive by, you look the other way, you act like it's not there.
You take the other way out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, but you'd rather spend lots and lots of time and money trying to generate a lead from your branding, or even worse, buying buyer leads, which is just awful, where you could just go and directly speak to the people who already have identified themselves as being folks that want to sell their home. So if the end game, Bob, is to make it so that you're going to do business with sellers, and you already can get a viable list of sellers that want to do business with you, why the hell don't you just go directly after the people you're trying to target? It makes absolutely no sense to me, and it never has. It's like if you're going to be a fisherman, like Julie and I are at our cabin here in North Carolina for another couple of weeks, roughly, and there's a lot of guys around here that fish. And some of them have these big fancy fishing boats with these fish radars, I'm learning about all this. I'm not going to be a fisherman, but it's too technical for me to be good at it. And I get a hook in my head or something. I'm not going to do it. Not for me. But in any event, all of our neighbors do it. And so I noticed some of them have these big fancy boats. They're competitive fishermen. And they have these computers that will go and read the lake and tell them where the fish are.
Fishometers, yeah.
Fishometers, right. Okay, so that's, I get it. Or why don't you just go to the lake and look down into the water and see where the fish are, and why don't you go to that exact spot? And so I'm joking around with one of our neighbors, and I bring this, he goes, Tim, that's what we all do. He said, at the end of the day, we'll know and we'll tell each other where the fish are hiding out, and they go to the deep water on the hot days because it's cooler, and we all just go right there. But that's not what you guys are doing. What most agents are doing is they're going and buying the fancy boats and the fancy computers, and they're trolling the water looking to where the fish are. Whereas the people that are actually serious fishermen that are winning the competitions, they're going to where they know the fish are. They're going directly to where the fish are, casting, pulling up the fish and winning the competition. And by the way, Some of those fishing competitions, those guys win like huge money, which is kind of shocking.
Kind of like real estate.
Yeah, well, duh, right? There you go. Nice loop there. I appreciate that. Nicely done. Yeah, but so that's the whole moral of the story is
But
like
Tim, why do agents do it that way? Why is that such a thing? What's your opinion on that?
because they feel pressured to, peer pressure.
Okay.
Because all this stuff, social media, if you think about it, what it's really ultimately the reason it's successful is because humans have an innate desire for recognition
Hmm.
that sort of wanes as you get older. But when you're younger, especially, you are definitely, there's something innate within all of us that wants recognition. You want to be accepted. You want to be seen as successful. You want to show your worth. You want to peacock. You want all these ego things, right? But really, it's just recognition. That's what one of the most innate desires of all humans is recognition. But like I
For
said, as you
sure.
get older, it matters a hell of a lot less. And so what social media does is it appeals to people's desire for recognition.
Hmm.
So that's what branding and marketing does too. Branding and marketing are 100% trying to manipulate people's, again, innate desire for recognition. And they're lied into believing that the more recognition you have, the more of an influencer you are, the more real estate transactions you'll do. And again, if you want to do more real estate transactions, why don't you just directly solicit the people who already want to do a real estate deal with you? And if you want to work buyers, I'll tell you right now, you have one listing. You're going to generate so many buyer leads, even in a
For
market
sure.
where it's a buyer's market, you're going to generate so many buyer leads, you have to beat them off the stick. So the idea, again, that all this marketing and branding is even necessary for an agent to be successful is simply not true. Now, if you want to do it, if you want to do the marketing and the branding, don't try to lead with it. Don't try to build your business in your consistent lead generation because what's going to happen is you're going to be stuck into the grinder of buying your leads. First, you're going to start out by doing marketing and branding, and you're going to do some social media ads. You're going to build your YouTube channel, and you're not going to get any business from it. And you're going to say, well, it takes time. You're going to go back to your guru, your coach who told you to do it. Oh, you got to do more of it. You got to make your videos better. You got to do blah, 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 more and more
Hmm.
content. But then what happens is you slip into the spider's web of just buying your leads. And so then you're going to be buying all your buyer leads. You're going to be buying the occasional listing you get from a relo. And then you're stuck into this black hole that has no bottom of never having learned how to be a proactive lead generator where you actually go out and get your own business. You know exactly where the fish are in the pond. You go there, you pull up the winning fish, and you obviously win the prize. Many of you have never realized how to do that. And as to why, I started out with recognition. A lot of you guys just want recognition. That's just definitely, if you're just honest, that's the whole. How many of you right now would sacrifice profit for an award? How many of you would sacrifice?
Well,
Go
they do it all
ahead.
the time.
Oh, the
You don't
totally.
even have to ask. People do it all the time.
Right,
Of
they do.
course.
But how many of you would sacrifice profit in your business for to be on a list, to be higher up on a list, to say I'm top 10 or I'm number 1 or I'm number 5 or whatever in your marketplace? How many of you would give away money to do that? The answer is to what Julie just said, virtually all of you. Many of you need to move past that mindset and realize that at the end of the day, you got into this business because hopefully you like people, you like real estate transactions and all the normal things, but you also wanted financial freedom. And you're never going to get the financial freedom as long as you continuously try to buy recognition, be it from spend. So you want to be higher up on the list, more transactions, more volume. You're then going to spend more money, try to generate more buyer leads, pay more referral fees. And sure enough, you do more transactions, you do more volume, and you might be number 1 in your marketplace, but you literally are losing money on every transaction because you spent your money just to have the recognition. You guys get it? So I'll challenge all of you. And Julie and I have been in this space for 3 decades. I'll challenge all of you to break free of that. Give yourself permission to really challenge your precepts as to why you're doing what you're doing. Because even when the market swings back, and it's going to swing back in a meaningful way, it does feel like the second half of this year is going to be the start of the spring for the following year. But when that happens, if you're just back where you were previously, spending all of your money on lead generation, marketing and branding and CRMs and drip campaigns and all the rest of it, when the market then maybe slows down 3 to 4 or 5 years from now again, you're going to be wishing you would have saved more money. You're going to be wishing you would have built a business around profit. Otherwise, you're going to be right where you started. And so many of you right now listening to this podcast, that's where you are. You're rebuilding after having a great, 3, 4 years ago, you had your best years ever, many of you. And the last 3 years have been tough. And I'll lead you into your notes, Julie. And so now you're in a situation where you wish you would have made different decisions, but you're still doing the same things, which are going to lead to the same results. You understanding what I'm trying to say here? I'm trying to save you from, and I have this happen all the time, especially with elite coaching clients.
Mhm.
Every single elite coaching person that I'm coaching, all of them, and Julie as well, all of them are coming to us because they wanted to have an alternative future that's not oriented around doing what they don't want to do and they don't want to do at the highest level for the rest of their lives. They want to have they want to have a future that's based on financial freedom. Nobody's going to give it to you. You don't just automatically get it the longer you've been alive. You have to earn it and you have to do it with a plan. And a lot of the agents that are joining with Julie and I are, having us as their private coaches. That's what they've realized is they've realized that the cards are definitely stacked against you from ever being financially free. Matter of fact, it's arguable that the system, whatever the hell that is, wants you to be financially dependent your entire life and never be financially free. Or by our definition, rich. And rich is where your money works for you and you no longer have to work for your money. When you wake up in the morning, I want you to allow yourself the grace of imagining what it would be like to know for a fact that you are living for free. In other words, the amount of money you're making from the appreciation and the cash flow, maybe at dividends, rental properties, a revenue share at EXP, the money that you're making that day makes it so that literally you're living for free because the past performance of your wise decisions have made it so you're rich, where your money's working for you. You no longer have to work for your money. So your earned income, actually what you make from your, sweat of your brow, as it were, is equal to, and then eventually less than the amount of money you're making from your passive income. So you might choose not to work. You might choose to take a month off. You might choose to give yourself permission to maybe make real estate sales, maybe make real estate sales in the constant sort of grinding and just that's what, again, a lot of my coaching
Well,
clients.
very transactional, right? So agents typically believe that they will be financially free when they do the next big deal, when they finally are able to save for the next
I
deal,
don't actually
and all
don't
those
think
types of things.
I actually don't think, Julie, especially after
Mhm.
this batch of people I've talked to since that I decided to take on some elite coaching clients again, I don't think any of them have ever actually believed they would be financially free. All of them wanted to be financially free, but they haven't had any role models of people in the industry who they've seen become financially free. And I'll
It
tell
is
you why
rare.
that's true,
Mhm.
because when you become financially free, you don't brag about it. When
Yeah,
you
that's
become
true.
you don't get an award for it. And I was
Mhm.
telling, I forget who this week, but like when you're going to have to be willing, because this person was still very much addicted to being on a list, top 10, top 5. But when you become financially free, when you finally are making your 15,000 a month that you need to pay all your personal bills passively, you're not going to get a plaque for it. You're not going to get an
But
award.
you no longer crave that same recognition. I think what you're saying is when you're actually financially free, that fills the space of what you
I'm not
used to
saying
want
that.
from the recognition.
I'm not saying that. I
Okay,
think you
sorry.
always, no, I think you always want the recognition.
Really?
I think I
Even
absolutely.
when you're financially free, you think so?
Oh, definitely. People always want recognition. It's innate within all of us. You'll want it from your family. You'll want it from, your church. You'll always want recognition. But the thing is that you will have made it so that you'll still want the recognition, but you'll see it for what it is. Remember, I started out by talking about being able to be
Mhm.
introspective and looking at things
Sure.
from both
Maybe you
sides.
don't lead with it as much.
Right. Well, why you'll start saying, for example, why am I making the decision to spend money on this advertising? Is it because I want to generate leads and get business from it? Or is it because I want recognition? So if I'm going to hold it to a standard of generating leads so that I are generating actual closable transaction, the decision-making process as to whether or not you're going to spend that money is completely different. Because then you're going to say, Mr. Marketing and Branding Expert, Mr. Guru. So if I spend the money with you to do this marketing and branding campaign, how much money am I going to make and how long is it going to take for me to make that money? They're not going to give you an answer
You
because
can't.
they're bullshit artists. That's
Yeah.
it. So they're not going to give you an answer. That's when when you're able to consciously realize that your innate desire is always going to be to have recognition from other people. Then but you're aware of it. You will no longer make decisions unconsciously in the pursuit of the recognition.
Hmm.
And so you're going to have to work towards being financially free and accept the fact that your heart's always going to want the recognition. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Julie, you want recognition. I want recognition. We all do. But we are able to put systems in place and lead with our intellect so that we were not allowing our desire for recognition to eat away at the things that we've at the profit we've made over the last 3 decades to buy the assets that we have. That's what I'm
Sure.
saying. Does that make
Makes
sense?
sense. Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, just
I
different
don't,
ways.
I don't think you
Yeah.
walk to the next step. I don't think you ever wake up one day and all of a sudden don't want recognition. Like I was just talking, we had a guy come by and Jerry came by and gave us an estimate on doing some stacked stone work, some detail work on our little house here. And I was talking to him about, he's been doing it for 30 years, told me all about it. And he said, the reason he said sometimes he said 40 years actually.
Hmm.
He said, sometimes he doesn't wake up in the morning wanting to do it. And I said, well, I happen to know he owns hundreds of acres around here. So I said, why do you do it? You don't have to. He said, it makes me incredibly happy when he didn't say recognition, but when I get the appreciation from people like you and Julie for the
Mm.
work that I've done, and makes me incredibly happy to see your reaction to the work I've just created. That's recognition.
Fills his cup. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in real estate, what happens is the industry, brokers, the whole system is
Hmm.
designed around making people focus on their desire for recognition, ego stuff,
Yeah.
and away from profit stuff. And that's the
Hmm.
reason that the industry is so addicted to awards and lists and all this
Yeah.
marketing and branding stuff. And that's the reason and getting back to your question, why people haven't figured this out, is because brokers, office managers, other trainers, gurus, they're all biased towards the marketing and the branding stuff
Hmm.
because they probably just
Sure.
don't know any different,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. It is the pressure you were talking about. It's like the expectation that you're supposed to do that.
To be the person in your office, your market, who just is focusing on being of service to other people, focusing on being a great listing agent, getting your listings sold, running a very high profit business, taking that money, then reinvesting that S&P 500 rental properties, or if you're smart enough to be at the EXP Realty Revenue Share, if you're that person, no one's going to recognize you for that. They won't. No one's going to, you're not going to make any, you're going to have to probably, maybe you can be high up on a list and still accomplish all those things, but probably you're going to say, I don't want to play that game. You're going to decide you want to play a different game. You want to play the freedom game. You want to play the independence game. You want to play the game where, yes, you want recognition, but you're not going to feed that monster. You're certainly not going to feed it with what should be your profit from your business. Does that make sense, Jules?
Sure, it leads you to make different decisions, certainly.
Totally. That's all I
Hmm.
was saying. And that's the reason I
Hmm.
started out by telling you or sharing with these guys today that it's one thing to have your biases and your opinions. It's another thing entirely to challenge them, to
Sure.
proactively be introspective and challenge your precepts, because you will often find that a lot of the opinions you have when you research them completely are based on actual things that you don't actually truly believe, but you don't know you've been parroting a certain set of values that aren't
Hmm.
actually in alignment with who you've become. I
Yeah,
don't know if
but
that
that can
makes
only
sense.
come from within. And nobody's going to do that for you. You have to take responsibility and accountability for your own introspection and examination of those beliefs.
Well, I'll give an example. And this is
Mhm.
so I started a hobby podcast called Full Throttle Talk 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And Full Throttle Talk is just purely a passion project. And I've got three guys that are also hosting the podcast, and all of them are car guys too. So if you're a car person, Full Throttle Talk, check it out.
Yep.
And it's fascinating to me. There's one guy that is essentially he's not financially independent. He's younger than us. He is worried about how he'll be perceived because he doesn't want to piss anybody off. He doesn't want to lose his customers. He doesn't want to, and all these things make sense, but what he's really fearful of is getting fired.
Hmm.
That's his real belief.
Yeah.
Where
And,
the,
and he says this type of thing like very consistently.
yeah, well, I
Yeah.
don't want to say that. I don't want to. And then when I talk to him when the podcast isn't going on, he straight up says, because I'm financially dependent on this one source of, this
Yeah.
job. And if I lose this, so my point is the other two guys and Julie and I, we work for ourselves. We're mostly, that's not an issue for us. But that lays into the fact that if you are financially independent, if you are free, basically, would you live where you live? Would you vote for who you vote for? Would you have the friend group that you have? Would you say the things that you say? Would you wear the clothes that you wear? How many of your decisions are being made because you are financially dependent on the ecosystem that you find yourself in, and to start to break free of it, you're fearful, rightfully so, that you'll be rejected and then you'll lose your source of income. So that's what's kind of amazing is when you do break free of that, you could be around a bunch of people that are overweight. I'm not, just stay with me here. Don't want to offend anybody, but a lot of people are listening in life right now are overweight. So you're around all your friend group and your neighbors and your everybody's, they're, fat. You decide to lose weight. You go on Ozempic. You start working out. You go low carb. Boom. You're literally half the person that you used to be. By the way,
You're a
Jerry,
shrinking person.
Julie, Jerry, you didn't see
Yeah.
him this morning. He
Yeah.
went from 240 pounds. Now he's 175.
Wow. But he looks totally different too.
He looked way better.
Do you have
So
more energy?
he just couldn't stop talking about how much better he feels.
That's awesome.
And this guy's he's probably, I bet he's 70.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. So any of that, yeah. So your friend group, when they see you shriveling up, right? When they see you getting leaner, they see you working out, how do you think they're going to react to you? You know how they're going to react to you. They're going to reject you. That's a strong word, but they'll do it in little subtle ways. Have an extra this, do this. You look skinny, blah, 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 blah. They'll say stuff like that to you. The same thing happens when you all of a sudden decide you want to be financially free. And everyone around you, I had another coaching call this week where the guy is living in his hometown. Everyone around is basically not really working hard. And a lot of people are unemployed. And he has a lot of people that are very small thinkers. And then they see him excelling. He's in great physical shape. He's really ambitious. He's making a lot of money. He's doing a lot of transactions. He's broken out of that little box that they're all in, and they reject him. And he said basically his friend group that he grew up with, almost none of them are his friends anymore. He said only 2 of them are still his friends. So really what happens is and some of this sounds really bad, but I have news for you. As you climb out of that bucket of lobsters and you climb out, you're going to discover a whole new world. And yes, you're going to lose some friends and you're going to have to replace them. So back to the example of the person that decided to lose the weight, they're making new friends at the gym. They're making new friends for people that are, also on the same trek that they are to really get their health in order, that type of thing. You guys get what I'm saying? So you will find yourself oftentimes having to upgrade your environment, upgrade your friend group, upgrade your thinking, upgrade who you listen to for advice, upgrade your real estate coach or trainer, upgrade the books you read, upgrade the news feed you need. And then you do feel this sense of loss. But what you're going to discover is you'll discover a new group of people, you'll discover a new group of thoughts, but to allow yourself to transcend your current lot in life, you really do have to go back to first principles and examine why you think the way you think. Don't spend a lot of time on it. I'm not asking you to Dr. Freud yourself, but just look. So why do I have this bias towards, I don't want to be political, but why do I think this way about Trump? Have I actually stopped to question why my beliefs are that way about tariffs, or why my beliefs are that way about, this or the other thing? Have I actually, someone said to me this week, they said, Tim, essentially the borders are getting rid of all the workers. Americans don't want those jobs. There's not enough Americans to fill all those jobs and all the rest of it. I'm not going to talk about it, but if you actually research to find out if that's true or not, and how about this? What was it? 6 months ago, people were saying tariffs are going to be the bane of the existent. We're all going to be, it's going to be some sort of deep, dark
Going to ruin
recession.
us.
And you could read all these real, intellectual sounding articles and all these PhDs that were saying tariffs are just stupid. And all these people were, normal people were saying, oh, Trump's going to screw up. And guess what's happening? Tariffs are generating hundreds of billions of dollars for the U.S. economy that's being used eventually to make it so that people making under $200,000 per year aren't going to have to pay federal income taxes. That's what Trump said. That's the point of the tariffs, is to make it so that they can essentially make it so people making under $200,000 a year don't have to pay taxes.
And it's already happening. That's not speculation. They've already reported on that. We have like maybe 45 days worth of data, and that's already very provable.
Well, since May, right? Since May 5th. Yeah. So, this is my Friday offload because of all the conversations we've had. But what are you thinking about, Jules?
Well, I think it goes back to your original point at the top of the podcast, which is check what your beliefs are, what's causing you to react that way. And, it does go often we go to the 4 filters, right? Why do you believe that? Is it actually true? Are you believing that because you've read that same headline 3 or 4 times? And I'll bring us into a couple of our segments today. Like the first one, there's been a headline this week that that sales are so far down, it's less than 1995. And, that must mean the real estate market's crashing and nothing's selling and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, at the same time, we have more inventory than ever. And at the same time, we have more purchase applications than ever. So what's going on with that? Maybe there are fewer sales right now, but we're adding inventory. And why are we having more purchase apps? Because people are putting their house on the market. And most times when somebody sells, they're also going to buy.
Well,
It's
but
very unusual that a homeowner will become a renter.
build on what you just said. So why is it that the news and why is it that certain sectors of politicians want people to believe that you'll never be able to buy a house? Why is it that some people are so absolutely against the idea, I'm going to say it, sorry, of private ownership of real estate? Where does that all come from? Like, I didn't know where it came from, but you can definitely see it. You can hear it, you can read it, you can feel it. That's one of the big reasons that Fannie and Freddie are still in conservatorship, and they're going to be coming out of conservatorship hopefully sooner than later. But why is it there's such zeal around the idea that government controls housing? Where's that come from? Marxism. That's where it comes from. In Marxism,
No way they can control you.
well, in Marxism, it specifically says one of the tenets of Marxism is to ban private property ownership. Right. And when you see in countries where there was essentially a communist or a Marxist takeover, the first thing they did is they took private assets. They don't want people having assets. They don't. And if the government can control who lives where and what type of house, who can get a loan, who can't get that's where it all comes from. It's just a control lever. That's all it is.
They're literally controlling your entire life, your well-being. If they control where you live and how you live, I mean, what's more basic than that, right?
Exactly. And if you think about, and I'm so thankful that I'm hearing this sanity return, these conversations about, it's just terrible. The average age of the first time buyer is now nearly 40, 38 years old.
That's right.
And I do believe that there's been a lot of headwinds that have prevented a lot of folks from buying houses. But the thing that nobody wants to comfortably talk about, it's not the housing prices that have prevented people from buying houses. It's the institutions. Frankly, for the last 20 years, well, since 2009, it's the fact that the government has made owning a home so freaking expensive. If you look at the amount of junk fees that are charged just to obtain a mortgage, close a deal, and then monthly payments, it's extraordinary.
Yep.
Like, for example, property taxes. How much are you guys paying in property taxes? Julie was telling me we have a house, a normal house in Columbus, Ohio, that's worth probably $400,000. And she told me, and I didn't realize this, that the property taxes are $8,000 a year. I mean, that's bonkers. And so
Going up all the time too. Yeah.
and so one of the things that Trump said he wants to do is he wants to get rid of property taxes. And if you think about all of the ways that we're being taxed on home ownership, and then now you have interest rates. So why are interest rates being kept high right now? Who's benefiting from interest rates being kept high on mortgages? Are you, dear real estate practitioner? Are your buyers or your sellers? No. I mean, I'm not trying to be political, but it does seem political that they're trying to keep interest rates high. And why are they trying to keep interest rates high? What's the excuse? Well, we're worried about the effects that the tariffs have had. We're worried about the effect that's going to have on inflation. Well, what's the effect that it's had on inflation so far? Inflation's now barely 2%, and the tariffs are bringing in billions of dollars into the federal government. It's a major income source. But why are interest rates on mortgages still high? There has to be a political bent to it that we're not seeing. But how many of you are not seeing the fact that it's essentially because there's an innate desire in a lot of, essentially people in power to control housing and control who gets a house and who doesn't get a house and control private ownership. There's a statistic, Julie has this memorized, and it's quite shocking.
What is it?
You do. The amount of net worth that somebody has that's a homeowner versus a renter. What is the difference, Julie?
About 40% more.
40% more. So to owning a home, and not spending all of your equity.
Maybe it was 400%. It's the difference between having like barely thousands saved and hundreds of thousands saved, because think about how equity works.
Well, your mortgage gets paid down, inflation or appreciation drives the value of the house up. The average net worth of a homeowner versus the average net worth of a renter is shockingly. So there's no wonder why younger people are so pissed off, honestly. Sure. I totally get it.
Yeah.
They've been fed a bill of goods about go to college, you get a degree, you're gonna have a great secure job. Well, that isn't true. Then now they thought, well, my parents bought their house when they were in their 20s, and I am not able to buy a house now. I'm nearly 40. Well, I feel like I've been lied to. You have been lied to, but you've got to examine why you've been lied to. You've got to examine why you believed the lie and then start questioning as to whether or not you want to continue to believe the lie. House prices are not the problem. The payments are the problem. House prices are going to continue to go up. It's the payments that they can control through the types of mortgages, the reduction of the junk fees, and the lowering of the interest rates that'll make it so people can be homeowners again. We know the net worth of the average homeowner is through the roof, but what we also know, and this is the stuff that no one's going to talk about on the socialized housing side of the argument, is that the sense, look, if you don't own a home, you are a little wayward. If you're renting, the sense that you have of financial security is not the same as if you own a home. A community that's mostly owners is a lower crime rates, higher, all the things that you want in a community, all the things you want for your life.
You're also contributing to society and to the economy, and you're spending money on your house and your kids in that school district, and you want to stay there. You're like so integrated into the community. All things are better, and that people have studied this, the wealth of the community and as you said, crime rates go down. It's all good.
Well, the sense of community, the people's belonging, the nature of how people communicate with each
You're
other.
literally invested in your lifestyle and in your town and your schools and all the things.
Julie and I had a little condo in Laguna Beach years ago, and we were only there part-time, but we'd walk down to Main Beach, if you guys know where that is, and we'd sit on the bench and we'd watch the surfers and all the rest of it. And as soon as somebody sat next to us, the first thing they'd always try to sniff out is whether you were a tourist, whether you were renting, or whether you owned. And
Renter or owner. It's in the first 5 minutes of the conversation.
it was crazy. It was so funny. It was so overt. They just didn't even care that you knew what they were trying to sniff you out. And as soon as they found out you were an owner, boom, conversation, totally casual. They're treating you like a neighbor. But we were never a tourist there and never a renter there, but we'd seen those similar experiences happening with people that were cold shoulder, walk away, sit on another
because
bench.
if you own there, you're invested there, you're there to stay. And maybe that sounds judgy, maybe not, but literally, renters can come and go. And the nature of renting, what's the longest single family lease? Maybe 2 years if you're lucky.
Right.
So the nature of it is transient. The assumption is that you're not invested, or you're not yet invested, I guess.
But Julie, think about this, all right? So think about when, I'm 55, and I'm not going to say your age, but I met you in high school and I was a junior and you were a sophomore, so people can do the math.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. When we were growing up, what was the American dream? It was to
own a home.
Now, I want you to make this observation. First of all, people don't even use the phrase, the American dream. What the hell happened with that?
I don't know.
The socialists ran that out of the vernacular, but it's coming back. Sorry, if you're being offended, if you're triggered, I'm going to ask you to check your precepts. Go and be introspective about why you're offended by what I just said, because what I just said is true. Because it used to be the American dream is to own your own home. And then the American dream they changed it. And now people don't even say the term American dream anymore. But we're seeing now people returning to the fact that the American dream is to own your own home. Because when you own your own home, your psychology about your sense of belonging to a community completely changes. Not only that, but the wealth building effect really starts to creep in. And then you become financially, obviously secure. And then what happens is over time, if you are financially prudent, you can use the house that you bought as your foundation for your financial security as you get older. But then you start becoming financially independent. You do start making headways to becoming rich, where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. You have to do it consciously. You have to do it deliberately. You have to do it, consistently, obviously, because the momentum, the accumulation effect again will work in your benefit. But do realize that nobody wants you to be financially free. Nothing wants you to break free. Your rotund friends, all of them want you to stay fat. Your, workaday friends who are all, hating their jobs and complain about their financial predicaments, they all want you to stay in that situation as well. That's life. And you don't have to feel bad because you want something better for your family and for yourself. You have to feel unsatisfied, so angry with yourself that you could have it, and you still have chosen not to do it
Mm-hmm.
because your need to be accepted by this group that you're in is more important than your innate desire to want to be free. And I'll challenge you. And here's what happens. When you decide to pursue sticking with being in good shape, when you decide to pursue being in good shape and you lose the weight and you get in good shape and you start looking better, you start feeling better, all the things, what you're going to be is a leader for the people around you in your community, and they're going to start following you. They're going to go in good shape. They're going to start losing weight. They're never going
That's
to
right,
say,
because you're setting the example, and that's the
exactly.
mindset to have.
Yeah. And
As
that,
uncomfortable as it may be on the ascension, the mindset is that you are setting an example. It does remind me of, raising kids, like if you want them to be a certain way, you've got to model that out. If you don't want them to be on their iPad nonstop, then why are you using your iPad in front of them?
well,
Set
but
the example and be the leader. And the people will maybe struggle with that in the beginning and say, gosh, what's happening to that person? It looks like he lost 50 pounds. Oh my gosh, is he okay? Maybe that's their first, triggery reaction. And then they go, huh, looks like he's got a lot more energy. Seems a lot happier. Maybe I
well,
could do that too.
I had a particular experience when Julie and I, in our first year in real estate, and we were in our early 20s, our first full year in real estate, we'd sold over 100 homes, 103 with our pendings. And we at that time we earned over $300,000. Now I want you to remember, this was the mid 1990s. So $300,000, if you factor in inflation, is probably the equivalent of 750. I can do it in my head.
Somewhere in there.
Over $1 million. So
Mm-hmm.
our first full year in real estate, if you are in your first full year in real estate and you sell over 100 houses and you make over $1 million, actually, you know what, Julie? If you were to figure out what our average sale price was and you now figure if it were our average sale
Same
price was
number of sales times
500,
the age.
100, it would be
Yeah.
1.5 million. That's how much it
Yep.
would have been. So yeah, so that's what it's the equivalent of somebody today getting into real estate their first year in the business with no previous real estate background and earning over
Mm-hmm.
$1 million their first year from individual transactions. That's what Julie and I did. And I'm not going to say we had any sort of grand plan or anything like that.
No, it's one deal at a time. Yeah.
That's a different conversation. But the reality of it is at the end of the year, we sat down, we added up how many deals we'd made. We, of course, weren't keeping track of, we were just, frenetic, really. We realized how much money we made. We realized how many houses we'd sold. We broke all these records. We, got all this national recognition. All these things happened. We went on a speaking tour. Remax had us speaking to regions. All this stuff happened. But what I'm trying to express to you is we had a lot of people in our families, mine in particular, that summarily rejected us and wouldn't speak to us because they saw us as in a certain way. Tim and Julie are going to be this type of thing because that's
Mm-hmm.
what I raised them to be. They're going to be in this type of environment, live in this type of community. They're going to make this kind of money. And then
Yep.
boom, we completely blew the lid off of it. And we were making all this money and and everyone knew we were successful because they saw our sold signs everywhere. So we weren't hiding it or bragging about it. And that completely shattered the paradigms that people had for us. It's the fat person that got skinny. We are the poor people that didn't stay poor. And so
Yep.
people rejected us. Family members, they would say snide things. Some of them wouldn't summarily reject us, but some of them did. Some of them just wouldn't even speak to us. We definitely lost friends. All these things happen. Feel sorry for us? Don't feel sorry for us. I'm so glad we did it because on our ascension, we found new friends. We found
Mm-hmm.
new groups of people that we could hang out with. We found that people that were also successful were the most willing to grab hold of you and pull you up and help you on your sojourn because they realized that you were like they were, say, 20 years ago. That's what we found. And you're finding the same thing, hopefully, listening to this podcast. But here's what's really interesting. Some people it was a year, some people it was 10 years, some people it was 20 years. But those same people that had rejected us, family members and friends and whatnot, they then modeled us and they then broke free. And some of
Mm-hmm.
them were gracious enough to come back and say, you guys, I saw what you guys did. I mean, people will straight up and say, jokingly, hopefully, I saw what you and Julie did. If you guys can do it, I know
If
I
you
can
can
do
do
it.
it, I can do it. Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't necessarily getting into real estate. It could have just been whatever their mission was. But we gave them the path to break free and to blow the lid off their lives. And they then basically did it. Now, what happens then? And this is exciting to me, is now they're modeling that behavior, to Julie's point, for their friends and their family. And they're going to go
Mm-hmm.
through the same experience, but then wash, rinse, repeat. And all ships eventually rise because a few of us are willing to pop the lid off the box that we have found ourselves in. What are you thinking, Jules?
Well, and that's who our coaching clients are by and large too. And what I was
Definitely.
thinking is that's all true. And we've lived that and we've seen that happen to many of our coaching clients. And it's happening to them now. The challenge is when you're going through it, you don't see that. You're
No.
in it. You're having those feelings like, gosh, this is a challenge. This is a struggle. This is hard. Is it worth it? This person maybe isn't talking to me. This person doesn't really understand. That's the part that's really difficult that you have to power through. And I was thinking, honestly, Tim, I was thinking lots of coaching calls where that's part of how we help you is to go and ascend that and stick to your guns and pull away. Because the people who really do care about you, maybe they're not going to come with you that day, but maybe it'll be that year, 6 months later, 2 years later,
Or
and
maybe
you'll
never.
look at them and you'll go, huh, that's pretty cool. They really were paying attention. Maybe they didn't say anything to you. And there will be other people that don't come along with you. And that's
And
fine
that's
too.
fine. But
Hmm.
you'll find new people. It is, you will make yourself always feel kind of terrible if you have it, if you know you have it within you to be great and you're not allowing
And
yourself
you
to be
don't do it.
great and you
Yeah.
don't do it. If you want to know what causes you stress, if you want to know what makes you miserable, is
Hmm.
knowing that you could have done something and that you didn't. Um, you know, if
That's
you,
actually harder,
I have a
I
friend,
think.
I have a friend who's about to go in to have a very horrible operation.
Hmm.
And he's going to, everything's going to be fine. He's going to live and, all the things. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful man. Julie and I are going to make him a video that's heartfelt. We're really going to share with him what he means to us, all that. And I'm going to send that to him. We're going to do that probably right after today's show. We're going to send it to his wife and she's going to share it with him. The whole thing, it's planned. And I'm
Hmm.
doing that because I don't want to leave anything unsaid in the event that something horrible happens during the
Yep.
procedure or shortly thereafter, which it could. How many of you have had situations in your lives where you wish you would have? How many of you, all of us do, right? How many of
Hmm.
you had somebody pass away where you wish you would have said something slightly different? Or you wish you had some conflict with someone, you wish you would have had the foresight to handle yourself differently, or you wish you would have held on to that asset, all these types of thoughts, right? Well, I mean, that's the thing. Those types of wish you would haves, knowing that you let the ball get by you, that's what makes you miserable. That's what makes you oftentimes look for replacements for what you could have,
Something to fill that void. Yeah.
right. Drug, alcohol
Hmm.
addictions, being nasty, being overly opinionative, being
Hmm.
overly skeptical. It's because you know inside of you that you had what it took to have been your version of great, but you never actually freaking did it. And I'm here
Yep.
to tell you the reason that you probably never did it isn't because you couldn't have, isn't because you were too old, too young, too fat, too skinny, too smart, too dumb, any of those things. It's because you surrounded yourself with the wrong people. And those wrong people surrounded yourself with a lot of thinking that kept you in that box. And it was easier for you to stay in that box, at least you thought it was at that time. It was easier for you to stay in that box than actually break free. And I
Hmm.
promise you, the older you get, and it does not matter how old you are, that is what's going to make you have the regret that you wish you would have. And I don't want that for any of you guys. You feel that way. You know what I'm talking about. And so here you are, you're listening to Julie and I. We've been on doing this now for about an hour, right? And you're wondering, well, what do I do with all this? I want
Hmm.
you to set yourself free. I want you to allow yourself to become the best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner. Be in alignment with your soul, which means to be in alignment with God. And the way to do that as a real estate practitioner is to be of service to other people. That's the loop. I just closed it for you. If you're not experiencing the levels of success in your life, it's because you aren't mostly, I don't want to be, sound like I'm being judgy, but you're not in alignment with your highest and truest purpose in this planet, which is being of service to other people, which is akin to being in alignment with your soul, which is the same as being in alignment with God. So you're out of alignment. You're focused on narcissistic things. You're focused on recognition. You're focused on how do I feel? You're focused on, was I, did somebody steal something from me? Am I a victim? All these types of thoughts. And maybe you say, oh, that's not me. But look at your behavior. You don't judge a man by what he says or a woman. You judge them by what they do. So if you're saying, oh, Tim, you're just being critical of all these other people, they're not me. Well, then I want you to be critical of yourself. Why is it that you're holding yourself back? Why is it that you haven't created financial independence or freedom for yourself? Why is it that you are, why haven't you gotten yourself in shape? Guys, freaking Ozempic, Wegovy, semaglutide,
And don't eat junk.
and don't eat junk. There it is. And do, 10,000 steps a day. You're going to lose a lot of weight. It's not hard. Why don't you do it? Why aren't you doing it? It's because ultimately in your head, you're worried about how other people are going to react to the fact that you're losing weight. It's not because you're afraid of the effort. The effort's not that big of a deal. It's kind of fun. It's because the people around you who also need to do the same thing are going to probably reject you. Reject is a strong word, but it'll be some form of rejection. Break free of it, because that's what causes you to feel misery. All the mindset books ever written, and there's billions of mindset books that are written, are about, I just summarized all of them. It's you holding yourself back from becoming the person that you innately, no matter how you try, that you intuitively, innately know you're capable of being, and you don't allow yourself to become that person. That is what makes everybody miserable. In pursuit of happiness, there is no arrival. I'm happy. Being happy is the pursuit of is the action of becoming the person.
It's the journey of it.
Well, you can say that, but it's the journey, but it's the actions every day that are in alignment with you becoming the best version of yourself. That's happiness. You might arrive someplace and say, "Oh man, this is pretty damn good." Woo, there it goes. There's that sense of happiness comes and goes. Happiness is the relentless pursuit of you becoming the highest and best version of yourself, which is you being in alignment with your soul. Does this all make sense, Julie?
Does make sense. What I was thinking is it's really the simplification of things. All of this other stuff that distracts you and gets you off your game and makes you feel bad, and you make yourself feel bad, and you go down the victimhood path and everything. I think we all know people where like nothing is ever right for them ever. It's because they're focused on something other than being of service. When you make it like, how can I help someone? Your whole life, I've had coaching clients tell me, when I stop thinking about how I'm going to feel because I made myself get on the phone, and I start focusing on, I'm here to find somebody that needs what I do for a living at a really high level, that's when their life changes. It's when their mindset changes. It's when their results change. So that's what I was thinking.
I was just remembering that coaching client I had, Jeff Silva. That's his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
Jeff Silva, I was kind of
Mhm.
coaching call with him years ago. He's become an amazing agent in New Jersey.
Mhm.
And he and I would role play. He was proactively lead generating, wonderful man, just everything about him. You'd say, this guy's going to be super
Good guy.
successful, but he wasn't able to effectively, proactively lead generate. And I would role play with him and I'd say, damn, this guy is good. I mean, this guy could be teaching other people to do this, but then as soon as the call was over, the coaching session was over, he wasn't setting appointments. So then one day I had him record his actual proactive lead generation calls. And what I heard was nothing like what I heard when I was actually on him with a coaching call. He was terrible when he was talking to clients.
Like a
And so,
different person.
yeah, it was like he'd never even read the script before. It was just garbage. And so I asked him to write down what he felt and what his head junk was that he was telling himself before he was about to pick up the phone. And he said all this shit that he thought that I wanted to hear. I am here to help you. I'm da 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 da. And I said, no. I mean, I knew that was clearly not what he was telling himself. So I said, okay, sir, here's what we're going to do right now. We're going to pick up the phone. We're going to call expireds, and I'm just going to listen. And I teed him up. He's got his Red X out. We're going to do the whole thing. He's going to put his headset on. He's going to stand up. He's going to make all the right moves, start making the calls. And then I said, stop right now, Jeff. And I want you to write down all the things that you're feeling. And I want you to write them down exactly how you feel emotionally, knowing I was about to listen to you actually prospect an actual seller. And then the stuff he wrote down was the exact opposite of what he even realized was going on in his head.
Yep.
What are they going to think of me? They're going to think I'm a pushy salesperson. I'm interrupting them. All these horrible thoughts he was having about himself, almost subconsciously, that was making it so that even though he had the skill set to go and prospect at a very high level, he wasn't doing at a high level because his mind was being weighted down
Lots of head junk. Yeah.
by his head junk, right? So I said, had him write down on a piece of paper, I'm here to be of service to you. I said, Jeff, before you pick up any call, before you have any conversation with any seller, before you allow any of the head junk, you're not going to get rid of the head junk. It's always going to be there. But what I want you to do is have in front of you, I'm here to be of service to you. That may not have been exactly what I had him write down, but it was the gist of it. And so then he started making that his mantra. And it was probably within 2 weeks, he started setting listing appointments because his dominant thoughts were no longer about himself. They are now about being of service to other people and helping the person on the other end of the phone. The person on the other end of the phone had a problem, a house that they needed to sell. They could have been in dire straits needing to sell that property. And he needed to focus on the fact that no matter how their voice sounded or what he thought they were, if he was interrupting them, all these types of thoughts that were inwardly directed, he needed to focus on being of service to them. The inward thoughts, the looking for the answers within you will lead you to misery. Looking for like the whole self-help movement that started in the late 60s, and Julie and I've studied this extensively, where you're supposed to be looking inside of you for the answers to all that ails you. Your answers are all within. That's the whole self-help. You go to Barnes & Noble, all those damn books, that's what they're all telling you to do. What's important to you? What's innate, blah, 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 you. All inward looking ego stuff. But the truth is, and this is what it says in the Bible too, the answers aren't looking inward, the answers are looking outward, and the answers are being of service to other people. And then when you free yourself from the limiting thoughts that are essentially making it like Jeff was, that you don't believe you can do it, and I'm interrupting them, they're going to think I'm desperate, they're going to have all these negative thoughts about me, they're going to say mean things about me, they're going to blah, blah, blah. I'm going to run.
Which is all manufactured, by the way. That very rarely even happens. That's all made up head junk because you're living in that space.
And you move yourself to a higher level where you're realizing your highest and truest purpose on this planet is to be of service to other people. You are in alignment with your soul. And then what happens is you transcend all of those limiting beliefs you have about yourself. And you now then are on a pathway to quickly become free emotionally. Now, all that stuff is still going to be there. You're always going to want recognition. You're always going to, you're probably never going to like doing proactive lead generation. All those things are still going to be there, but they don't dominate your thoughts and they don't dominate your actions. And I'm going to give you guys one other little idea, thing that I know that works. Do not try to change your thinking. That is an act of futility. Your actions are more dominant in your brain than your thoughts. Oh, what are you talking about, Tim? I was told I need to make my dream boards and I need to work on my thinking and I need to work on my mindset. Again, that's not focusing on being of service to other people. So if you then opposed to, I need to get my mindset right before I actually start doing what I don't want to do and I don't want to do at the highest level, you will never do what you don't want to do and you don't want to do at the highest level. The best way to get your mindset right is to start doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And then what's going to happen in action, your mindset's going to change. When you hear yourself talking to somebody and you see yourself becoming successful and you take the listing and you sell the house and you solve the person's problem, the limiting beliefs you had about yourself, the head junk, you don't even remember it. You don't even relate to it. You'll come across somebody else that thinks like you used to think, and that's what it'll remind you how you used to think. But you don't think that anymore because you've loaded new operating systems that only come from action. So hopefully, I didn't mean to talk about all this for an hour, but that's what was at the top of my mind. And that's what you and I have been talking about endlessly on our walks every single day.
Well, I think a lot of this comes from you being back in the coaching game. Yeah, because there's so much to this. You even though you talked about it a lot on today's podcast, there's many different versions of this with different people, but it all comes back to the same stuff, which is get out of your own head junk and get into the being of service, because then your head junk gets further and further and further away and more irrelevant to who you are and who you're becoming. And then you know that you can do it. And what's interesting, and I think one of the best parts about coaching is when we do see those transformations and we see how somebody says, you know what? I can get back in control of my life. I can do this. When I focus on the right things, everything gets easier. It's amazing to see. I love seeing those transformations and having a client come to the call and say, you know what? I had a breakthrough this week because I changed how I'm thinking about things. I changed what I'm doing. I'm taking the action more than just ruminating on my hamster wheel.
But it's like lead follow-up too, right? I mean, one of the
Hmm.
easiest ways for agents to increase their revenue is by doing better lead
Getting
follow-up.
better at that.
Hey,
Yeah.
calling their centers of influence and past clients. But look at all the thing and the real estate machine
Yeah.
gives you lots of excuses. So
Oh,
that
sure.
do the direct mail. Oh, you don't want to call
You don't have
people.
to do that. Get them to call you. Yeah.
Exactly, all that crap.
Uh-huh.
Whereas if you say, I want to help this person,
Hmm.
I want maybe it's an expired, maybe it's a for sale by owner, maybe it's the centers of influence of past clients. I'm here to be of service to people. I'm going to wake up every single day with my servant mindset, and that's what
Hmm.
I'm going to throw out. And here's what happens eventually. You radiate, you want a great brand, I just gave it to you. People will feel that you're different because they
It's
know
your
you're
work.
coming with a
Yeah.
mindset of service. They know you're coming with a mindset of gratitude for being able to be of service. And then people are going to want to do business with you. And then you're going to be less prone to spend money on ego crap and less money on branding and less money on buying leads because you won't have
You
to
won't have to. You won't even
because
care about that stuff.
you're not trying to feed your ego. You're not trying to
Yeah.
feed your desire for recognition. And then you start running a monstrously profitable business. Then you start becoming wealthy because you can then take that profit and invest it in other things. And then you're financially free. It's really
Hmm.
not more complicated
It's
than
that's
that.
my point is the simplification of it will set you free.
Yeah, and the exact opposite will keep you broke, will keep you beholden, will keep you
Hmm.
always wondering where your next deal. You might have 2 or 3 months of financial security, but you know the trajectory you're on now, you're never going to be able to retire, let alone have any real financial security. Why
Hmm.
don't you give yourself permission to be financially free? Why don't you give yourself permission to become the best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner, but also as a human, as a parent, as a spouse, as a member of your community? Why don't you give yourself permission? Move past the permission aspect, and why don't you hold yourself accountable, or let us hold you accountable to actually becoming helping you and walking the journey with you, become the highest and truest purpose of yourself. And guys, here's the bottom line: if you're ready for the next level in your lives, we are looking for a handful of elite coaching clients. And if you'd like to be considered to be one of our elite coaching clients, this isn't some sort of fancy sales pitch. It's just straight up. Text me at 512-758-0206. But do text me a little bit of a, resume about yourself. Tell me
Hmm.
about yourself personally and professionally. 512-758-0206. And we'll then, provide we think we're a good fit for you, we'll then set up basically an interview session. And then you'll interview us, we'll interview you. If we think we're a match, if you think we're a match for you, then we'll talk about going to the next level of you guys being an elite coaching client for us. We're at the point of our careers. This podcast is giving us the ability to have broad influence on literally, millions of people per year. That's what this podcast is for us. It's our attempt to be of service to as many people as we possibly can at the highest level. That's the reason that we say the things the way we say them, in a clear, easily understood, no BS way. That's our opportunity to be of service to all of you. But for the handful of you that really want to transcend and go to the next level with regards to your health, building of wealth, building of your business, education, all those types of things that matter most to you, we're looking for a handful of folks. And Julie's right. I mean, I have definitely reconnected. Coaching at a high level is a perishable skill. And I'm glad to be back doing it, but I have to say it's a hell of a lot harder than I remember.
It can be. Yeah.
It is.
But
But
it's
it's
also
some,
very fulfilling, and it's in many ways our life's work for you
well,
all of
it's
y'all.
it to close the loop, Jules.
Yeah.
It's like Jerry, who is here, telling
Yeah.
me that he gets so much satisfaction when he
Hmm.
sees the reaction from the art project of this, the stonework that he's done for folks. How that's his fulfillment. It's not the money. He doesn't
Yes,
charge that
that's right.
much. It's
Hmm.
the satisfaction. That sense of satisfaction from people having breakthroughs and epiphanies as private coaching clients. Yeah, it is very it's more I don't know if the word's even satisfying. It's not even cathartic. I feel like I'm more in alignment with my highest and truest purpose on this planet when I'm helping an elite coaching client have a breakthrough. It does
Hmm.
make me feel very
What's fulfilling? I don't know if
fulfilling.
that's the
Yeah.
right word, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm right
Yeah.
there with you. Yep.
That's it. So yeah, there it is. I got nothing else to say to you.
Get to work and stop overcomplicating things and call us. We have your back.
Well, not call, text.
Text. Sorry,
512,
text,
don't
text,
call.
text.
Do not call. I will not answer. So if you think you're ready to be in our elite schedule, 512-758-0206. So Julie, I know you had 4 pages of notes today. I know we talked about none of them,
Sorry.
which means that you're going to have to rewrite the description in the title for today's podcast
I think
based on
you
what,
should have to do that, but that's okay.
yeah, because it was my rant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we'll save the octopus story for next week.
That's right. So listen, guys, we have literally thousands of past podcasts. We do this every workday. So if you want to get back and listen to just, straight up Tim and Julie, practical, tactical, no BS, coaching and training, listen to any of our past podcasts. You could, by the way, in the show description is an invite to go to our, the masterminds that we're going to evidently start doing again because so many people are attending. So if you want to attend one of our masterminds we're doing, they're online on Zoom, just go to harrismastermind.com or just click below in the show description. If you want to pursue becoming one of our private elite coaching clients, text me directly at 512-758-0206. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we'll talk with you on the show. So thank you for having watched this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's right. And don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments and questions below, and we will get right back with you.
Thank you for watching this video. And remember to watch the next one. You're going to love that one.